So the duck walked back to the lemonade stand the very next day, and he walked up to the man and he said, "Got any grapes?" And the guy just kind of looked at him. He said, "This is getting pretty old. Lemonade's all we've ever sold. Why don't you give it a go?" And the duck said, "Heck no." And he waddled away till the very next day. Y'all interrupted me during the middle of my joke. Shakespeare Duck, I promise, one day I will finish telling you that joke. Welcome to virtual teaching for this week. Today we're going for English 2 specifically. Today we're going to be focusing on introducing you to reflective and expressive writing and kind of getting used to that. And you have an assignment today that will be revolving around 6-word memoirs. That will be your assignment for today. So that's you only have one assignment for today. It's 6-word memoirs. It's fairly easy. And then tomorrow we'll get into more of the rigmarole of everything. So last week, we did poems. These poems that we did, you wrote me personal narrative poems, and you interacted with Kwame Alexander's personal narrative poems. But the main thing I was wanting you to focus on is not necessarily the fact that they are poems. I was wanting you to use them as mentor text. What a mentor text is a text where you strip away the content and you're left with the structure, and you put your own ideas in the structure that is being presented to you. And so that's kind of what I was looking for you to do, is working your way around mentor text and seeing how that works. Because once you know how to strip away the content and use a text as a mentor, writing becomes so much easier, especially when you have to write a genre or a purpose that you've never written before. You can find an exemplar text that you can then strip away the content, leave the structure, and then put your own ideas in it. And that's how a lot of people, whenever they're first building up their abilities to write, really get ahead. Later on in the year, we'll focus on poetry, and we'll scream at the universe as it screams back at us, which is what poetry really is all about. This week, though, we are going to be focusing on expressive and reflective writing. We're going to be writing personal narratives. And so let me kind of give you a preview of how the week will go. Today is Monday. So on today, we will be, like I said, introducing you to the concept of expressive and reflective writing, and we'll interact with some mentor text that you could possibly use later down the road, and we'll be doing 6-word memoirs. Tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday, so Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, we'll be doing writing prompts. Now, think of these writing prompts as like seeds that you're planting. I don't expect all 3 of these writing prompts that you'll do to flourish into a full-fledged essay. You will only select one of these 3 that you'll turn into a full-fledged essay. But what you write on Tuesday, what you write on Wednesday, what you write on Thursday are just attempts. And as long as you make it a good-hearted attempt, I'll give you the points for it. So, and I think I'm going to put like a minimum of 150 to 200 words on these attempts. That way you can just get something down on paper. You don't have to finish it. Later on this week, you'll finish it. But what we do Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, those prompts that you'll do, the writings that you'll do on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday are just like practice, just to kind of see, is this going to be the topic that I select? Friday gets weird. If we were in school Friday, because we have an AMI day Friday, virtual kids, you also are included on the AMI day, I think. But Friday we have an AMI day. And so as a result, with this AMI day, what we're going to be doing, and if we didn't have the AMI day, we would just spend the day publishing the thing. You would pick the best of the 3 that you wrote on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and you would polish it up, flush it out to 500 words, make it look as nice as possible, and then submit that to me for a grade by Monday at 11:55. But since we're having an AMI day, we're going to have a little bit different thing going on Friday. Friday instead, you still need to do that, because you have a 500-word essay that for your personal narrative that will be due on Monday at 11:59. I have to give you a grade on an AMI assignment for Friday, so that grade will be basically 5 points, or you go on and say, tell me which of the 3 prompts you're going to write 500 words about, and that's going to be the assignment for Friday. And we'll talk more about that once we get there. But that's the thing that I'll take a grade for. So don't worry about that. But traditionally, Friday would be just work on the essay. There will be an AMI assignment that pops up. All you have to do on that one is go in there and say, I'm going to write my essay over this prompt that we did on Thursday, or the prompt that we did on Tuesday. And then you go flush it out to 500 words and polish it up, make it presentable. Since we are doing a 500-word essay that will be worth 100 points, I should share with you the rubric. So here's the rubric. In fact, it will be, here's the rubric, and I'll upload it with the actual assignment, but on Friday, but once we get to Friday, but here's basically how I'll be doing it. This is what we call a holistic rubric. And it's a little bit different than the rubrics in the past. How a holistic rubric will work is that I'll have 5 categories that I'll give you a grade on. So focus, organization, development, style, and correctness. Those are the 5 categories I'll be giving you a grade on. And I will basically, let's say I give you a grade, a B on your focus, a C on your organization, a C on your development, an A on your style, and an A on your correctness. So those are the grades that you got on each of those. I would average that together, and the average of all 5 of those together. So 1 B, 2 C's, and 2 A's is an 85. And so that's what you've gotten on the assignment. So that's what we're going to be looking for so that's what we're going to be doing with a holistic grade, is that each of these categories gets a letter grade, and I average the letter grades together to get you your overall grade. In the future, there are certain categories that might be weighted more. This is similar to what we do in EM 100, but since this is your first time interacting with it, we're just going to make it straight across where we blend it, we average it together. You could go, we could go through and look at every single one of these criteria if you want, but we're going to I'm just going to focus on A level criteria, and then we'll move on from there. So in order to get A focus, the main idea is clear and the topic is effectively limited to the manageable period of time and relevant details. So your story doesn't last years, your story lasts a couple days, maybe a week or a day. It doesn't need to be a super, super long lasting story. Organization. In order to get A organization, a logical plan is signaled by highly effective transitions. The essay's beginnings and ends are effectively related to the whole. So you have a good introduction, you have a good conclusion, you actually have a conclusion, and then you transition from idea to idea as you tell your story. Development, this is probably the major one that you need to focus on. For development, all major ideas are set off by paragraphs which have clearly stated or implied topics. So yes, you need to have this broken up into different paragraphs. I had seniors that did this assignment that submitted just one giant paragraph, and then I got upset when they failed and I was like, well, heck, two of the things on the rubric say paragraphs. I can't have you pass an essay that clearly went against the rubric. So all major ideas are set off by paragraphs which have clearly stated or implied topics. The main idea and all major topics are supported by concrete, specific evidence and details. The writer has made effective use of show, don't tell practices and has created a clear scene for the reader. Show, don't tell is basically you exploiting the senses. One of the nice things about reading is that you are imported directly into that experience. And you have a lot more, the reader and the writer both have a lot more control of what the reader is experiencing. Show, don't tell practices, you exploit the senses. You talk about what the thing looks like visually, but not just that, but you address the audio, the way things sound, the way things taste, the way things smelled, the way things felt. Those are different things that you help make it a much more immersive and clear and visceral experience for the reader. Also, figurative language, using figurative language like similes or metaphors, comparing one thing to another also helps underline those connections. Finally, the reflective part of it, the significance of the event is shown throughout the essay through the use of details which lead to the reader to the understanding. Yes, you show why this incident or this event or the story was important and impactful to you. Style just means sentences relate to each other and the paragraph topic and are subordinate to the topic. Word and phrase choice are appropriate to the context and the tone is consistent and appropriate. Correctness, there's no major mechanical errors, e.g. agreement, and only a few minor errors, e.g. spelling. So basically, do you follow standard English or not? Style is part of the main reason why we're doing personal narratives, because y'all are really good at giving me a lot of information, but you're not necessarily that great at embedding your own style, your own uniqueness, who you are. You cannot be heard on the page. And that's what style is just you being able to be seen and heard and visible on the page along with your ideas. And through personal narratives, that's a good way to get us started into that process of getting more of your style to be existent. So we write a personal narrative, we write a story that's about yourself, your style kind of comes out, and then you can start using that in other elements of writing. So that's the rubric. Now we're going to talk about what expressive and reflective writing is, what it means, what a personal narrative is all about. And I kind of explained why we do personal narratives, but this one, it will tell you about what a expressive and reflective writing is. So expressive writing, first and foremost, expressive writing is personal writing. You will share your thoughts, ideas, feelings, and questions about your experiences. Usually written from the first person point of view, you will be telling the audience how you feel. So you're telling the story that happened to you. That's what expressive writing is. You tell the story that happened to you. It needs to be coupled with reflective writing. Reflective writing helps it move up into those higher level thinking areas. Reflective writing, though also personal, reflective writing moves beyond recounting an experience and into an exploration of how that particular experience has shaped you. The goal of reflective writing is not to share final thoughts on a topic. On the contrary, it is a vehicle for exploring and discovering new thoughts. In reflective writing, you often look to the past as a means of looking to the future. So, expressive writing. This is what happened to me. Reflective writing. This is why it's impactful. This is why it's important. This is why it's still relevant. So, today in class, we have these two texts that we're going to read that will be a mentor text that you could possibly use for these future types of assignments that these future types of things you're about to write. Both of these, the author expresses and then reflects. You need to express first before you can reflect. The first one is by a professional author or professional writer named Jessie Ann Collins, A Mistake That Should Last a Lifetime. She does a really good job here of expressing and then reflecting and then expressing and then blending her expression into her reflection there at the very end. She also has a good hook, a good lead, and a solid conclusion. This is a really good piece of writing that we're going to interact with that involves expressing and reflecting. The other one that we're going to read, An Unexpected Friendship, is written actually by a high school senior. And this one, she does not go back and forth with the expressive or reflective writing. She strictly expresses the story all the way to the end, in which she then reflects on the greater meaning that it holds. So I have this up on Classroom, but I'm going to read it with y'all and kind of point some things out as we go along. All right. So, A Mistake That Should Last a Lifetime. In fact, I will pull this up on the thing. There we go. A Mistake That Should Last a Lifetime by Jessie Ann Collins. So pay attention to how she starts it, all right? So she's going to start it with a question towards herself. She's also going to kind of establish how this idea, this thought that she had, came into the universe. So if she's like the mother of this thought and has birthed this thought, she's talking about the father, how this thought came to her. So let us start. Removable ink makes it easy to erase romantic failings and youthful indiscretions. Why do I want to do that? This Valentine's Day, thanks to the advent of removable ink, couples can inscribe each other's names into their skin without the nagging fear of forever. It's practical but unromantic, the fringe culture equivalent of a prenup. Only if I could put off my quarter-life crisis until this year, maybe I wouldn't be living with my own flawed tattoo. Blurry, bumpy, with scar tissue, haloed with a permanent blue bruise. I've spent the past few years learning to love it. Not an easy task for someone who color codes her emails, alphabetizes her bookshelf, and tweets it compulsively. But as I read about removable ink recently, flipping through Time's Best Inventions of 2007, I realized that I'm not sorry my ink is permanent. I may have messed up tattoo, but I have no regrets. So that's how she begins it. That's her intro. That's her lead. And her thesis is essentially that she does not regret having her tattoo, the mistake that should last a lifetime. So she's going to talk about her messed up tattoo that she has. It's the idea that she's going to be reflecting and expressing on. And she just starts off how this idea came to be, where she was reading Time magazine. It talked about this new invention, and this new invention made her think about her own tattoo. And that's kind of how she started it and brought it to the forefront. So let's now join down here where she starts telling the story. Now, this very first part, she's going to put us in her shoes. She wants us to feel the experience vicariously through her, and she's going to use that by exploiting our senses. So let's see how she exploits our senses. She does it by talking about the weather and talking about how things feel. She also talks about like a marker and how that feels. She talks about the sounds that are occurring during it, and then she helps us understand the setting of just how sketchy this basement is. It was a cold April afternoon when I walked into a random Lower East Side tattoo shop and rolled up my sleeve. I showed the artist where I had inscribed and felt tip pin on the inside of my left wrist the phrase, "break to keep fixing," a lyric by the seminal 90s punk band Jawbreaker. The artist swabbed the marker from my skin and had me rewrite the phrase with an aqua sharpie. By then, I'd written it a dozen times trying to get it just right. This time was the one that mattered. I scrawled it nervously and told him I was ready. He sat me down in a dingy basement, pulled out the tools I could only hope had been properly sterilized, and popped into a metal CD at full volume. It was all over before the first song was. So there she does. She's putting us in her experience of getting this tattoo. Now she's going to continue to express about what happened when she got home. Back in my Brooklyn kitchen, I removed the bandage and rinsed my wrist with antibacterial soap. I realized then that my words, true to my handwriting, began in neatly printed letters and morphed by the end into script. Spooked that I hadn't noticed it until it was too late, I read that 4-word phrase for a solid hour, waiting for a spelling error to materialize. None did, and I bravely reassured myself that this quirk was just made it more me. But the permanence of the act I had committed was sinking in. This time I couldn't simply be wiped away and written again. So she's reflecting, or she's expressing still, and she's talking about how she realizes, oh no, I made a mistake. Her mistake isn't a spelling error, but she started writing it in print and ended it in cursive. And so that was the mistake. She wanted it to be all print or all cursive, but she has now this mismatch. And so that's a mistake. And so it's eating on her, but she's trying to figure out a way to live with it. Now she's going to shift from expressing to reflecting. And the first two is not as reflective, but the third paragraph here is where she really gets reflective. Of course, the fear of regret is the reason why I waited until 25 to get my first tattoo. The fear of regret is, in fact, arguably the biggest modern risk of the popular practice. And a technology that erases it from the equation is likely to be a profitable one. Named with marketing in mind, Freedom Ink 2, which hit the markets in several cities in late 2007, is made from biodegradable dye encapsulated in tiny plastic pellets. A tattoo is done in it just like any ordinary tattoo, except it comes with an emergency exit. Just break glass in case of change of heart. After a single laser treatment, the plastic dissolves, the ink is absorbed into the body, and the design vanishes. I like this little line right here. A break glass in case of change of heart, turn of phrase there. All right. In contrast to the painful and costly various effective laser treatments required to remove traditional ink, it sounds like a miracle, and perhaps a frustration for 17% of the already tattooed Americans who'd say they'd undo theirs if they could. Angelina Jolie may have the means to continually rework her body art, but most of us don't. We're living out our years with the histories of our youthful indiscretions and failed romances written on our skin. This paragraph right here is where she really starts to reflect upon herself. My own indiscretion wasn't impulsive. I stewed over the idea for years. I'm a textbook Virgo, over-analytical to the point of being indecisive, and indecisive to the point of becoming impatient. I shaved my head with just a month to go before my high school valedictorian speech in my tiny New England town, because it was something on my list of things to do as a teenager. So too was my first real office job, the sense that I would be absorbed into this anonymous Manhattan professional class. I felt like my dissipating youth would be wasted if I never got around to getting a tattoo. Or maybe I thought a little act of adolescent rebellion would buy me a few more years before I had to really grow up. So there's where her reflection comes in. She's kind of reflecting on why she ended up getting that tattoo, and she taps into her impulsivity, but she points out that she was about to get her first adult job, real job, and that scared her, similarly to graduating from high school. And so she did this adolescent rebellious act to kind of cling on to her adolescence, her youth, for a little while. Now she's going to shift back to expressing. She's going to start telling us a story, and then when we flip to the back, she's going to start that interesting blend she does where she slowly transitions and shifts to reflective writing in the middle of her expression. Either way, I woke that spring morning with an emotional itch so strong I got out of work. I looked up the address to the tattoo shop online and hopped a train to the city. I'd been in New York for half a year and felt like I was hatching, crawling from the crumbs of one life towards a new one. As they had in desperate times of heartbreak, depression, and angst, the lyrics spoke to me. This is the cure, same as the symptom. Pure and simple and pure. Break to keep fixing. I looked at them now quite literally, to guide my course of action. They explained to myself, and even explained on some level what happened next. I picked the scab. It was a nasty, ooh, It was a nasty one. My friendly anonymous artist apparently dug in too deep with a needle. Crusted over, the ink began to bleed and the letters blurred. At some point, I accidentally banged my wrist against the kitchen counter, loosening the scab prematurely. Don't touch it, everyone said, but I couldn't help myself. I ran my fingers over it compulsively as it peeled and flaked. I knew better, of course, but like many things I encounter, I just couldn't leave it alone. An ink-stained piece of skin bearing T came off completely. I blew it off my fingertip as if it were an eyelash. That was really good descriptive writing right there. The way I felt about it changed from moment to moment. Long after I'd finally healed, sometimes it looked puffy and frayed, and my stomach would sink. I'd had this on me for the rest of my life. At my wedding, in my coffin, I'd forever be explaining it, what it meant, why it looked the way it looked. I'd be enduring the scoffs of my younger, heavily tattooed brother, and the unconvincing assurances of my best friends. I sometimes found myself eyeing the laser removal ads on the subway, considering the damage I could do to my credit. At other times, it had almost looked perfect in the shower against my translucent skin, veins worn by the water. It was solid and clean. I liked the jagged arc it formed from a distance, the way you had to be up close to read it, as if it was a private note to self. It's more appropriately symbolic than any other tattoo could have been for me. It's something I created that has taken on a life outside of my control. What it symbolizes is important enough to me that I was willing to risk wearing it forever. It wasn't permanent. It wouldn't be what it would just be. What would it be? Just painful jewelry, a commodity. Right there is where she begins to transition mid expression into reflection. Now let's look at how she ends it. This is how she wraps it up. Here's her final comment, the final impression she's wanting to put upon the reader. It's still a commodity of sorts. I paid for it, $60, including tip. But it's more than jewelry. I got butterflies in my stomach at the time a boy ran his fingers over it and told me he liked it because it felt like Braille. It's me, flesh and ink. And like my stigmatism, cellulite, and other scars, there's nothing much to do besides live with it. It may seem like forever, but tattoos, even soon to be the old-fashioned permanent ones, only last as long as we do. They're an extension of the body, that notorious, imperfect, incredibly functional machine. Mine is a body that steeps in indecision and acts rashly and doesn't know how to feel uncomfortable and can't resist picking a scab. But at least I can live with the scars. That's an excellent zinger to add on the end. That's what a lot of conclusions are just looking for, just zingers, one last punch to get the point across. And that's what we're doing. That's what a good conclusion does. I'm not going to read the next one, but have this document uploaded on Classroom. I'd recommend reading it. This is a more closer to your level of writing, or some of your levels of writing example. In it, she basically just kind of expresses the entire time. And at the very last paragraph here is where she reflects on its greater overall meaning. She does a really good job of painting the picture and helping put the audience in the situation that she is in. And the other thing I want you to look at is kind of how she introduces a quote. You do in your text or your literacy or your narratives that you're going to write is include a quote. And so she kind of does it the front tag of Miss Malfrey proceeded to ask, quote, are you done yet? You could also do, are you done yet, Mrs. Malfrey proceeded to ask. You could flip it around either way, but that's kind of how you would embed a quotation. All right, now it's time for the assignment. Super easy assignment, and we'll be done for the day. So your assignment for today is a 6-word memoir. So a memoir is a historical account or biography written from personal knowledge or special sources. Here are 5 6-word memoirs from Smith Magazine. All things considered, I'm doing well. The past is forgiven, not forgotten. Escaped my mother, trapped by a girlfriend. So the water's deep and up. You're never the same person again. Here are some examples created by my wife and me. My wife did one, I did the first 4, she did the last one. These are 5 different 6-word memoirs. Busy at work, busy at home. Baby doesn't sleep, I love him. Teaching, broadcasting, ag research, then repeat. Master's is done, my education isn't. Paul, Carter, Scout are my babies. So what I want you to do, your homework assignment is create your own 6-word memoir for your life. 6 words. No more, no less. Not 5, not 7, just 6, to explain your life story. That's all I have for you today. Tomorrow we'll be doing a writing prompt that deals with sentence starters, and I will see you all then.